proposals in the Finance Bill 2023, including this 3% housing levy. What's the point of public participation if you insist we must pay?
Actually, first of all, it is not a tax. It is a saving plan that is meant to...
I googled the definition of levy just to make sure I understand.
You understand.
A levy is a tax.
Is a tax,
yes.
But you see now, the only problem, the only challenge we have as a government, which I need to point out, is the communication. We are not, disseminating information the way it is supposed to be, because it's an idea that will not only fund the housing plan, but also allow the millions of Kenyans who are hustlers to own houses. So you see the plan is still at the stage of drafting, which the government is yet to even tell Kenyans what it means and how Kenyans will benefit from this levy, which is 3%. I know people argue that they own houses, they get mortgages, but first, this is an idea that will fund the housing plan, because it's either we continue borrowing or we fund our own programs and plans. So this is a major plan and a major project in Kenya Kwanza government, which has to be funded. Secondly, I think there's also an exit clause, which is an explanation that after saving for the 7 years, you can now give back, you can get back your money. So it means you are saving for yourself. Nobody's taking away your money. The reason why I'm saying it is not a tax is a deduction that the government is taking. That you not get it back. It is meant to do other things. But this is a saving, which means it is under your custody. It is under your saving plan. So it means that after 7 years, you can get back your money. You can use it with whatever you want to do. You can get interest out of it. So I think this is a good model that is going to allow millions of Kenyans to own houses. It's also going to allow those who are working, the government employees or the civil servant, also to save. Because saving plan, people are no longer save. People talk about so many things, with forgetting that what they're supposed to do as a primary role for their generation. So it is helping both the hustlers and also the rich, or those who are working, the working class. So I think government should communicate in a way that people, even those who are down there, can understand the real idea out of this. But people must pay. They must fund the government, because that is the only way we can raise revenue. That is the only way we can fund our projects. That's the only way we can stop borrowing from China and other countries that we are currently paying. We are paying a lot of money under debt.
Okay. Mulo, I'm so used to you wearing a suit. I was a little bit distracted by your new look, but I like it. I like it. Dress down Friday. Solomon, your views on this, because there are those who argue that this is just, first of all, we are not sure this plan will take off as envisioned. So is this just giving more money for looters of public resources? And will we get interest commensurate to what we would have gotten in the marketplace after those seven years?
Now, I would say you could be right or wrong at the same time. It depends on how the measures the government puts to ensure that money taken from people who work hard, to earn it, is taken care of. It's not handed over to looters. And this country, we have experts in looting. So this could be a huge scandal in 5, 6, 7 years, like you put it. Could be a huge scandal if it's not taken care of. 3% is not a small amount. First, we have to know, is 3% of what? Because it is not 3% of 15,000. It's 3% of huge amounts of money from a certain group of civil servants. Not everybody is giving 3%, because a person who is working in Modhurwa and is earning money, where are they featured in? I think there is a huge problem in terms of mortgage in this country. And that's why you see President Uhuru tried this between 2017 and 2022. It failed. And it was actually flopped by the parliament. Why? Because it was not actually capturing everyone. For instance, I don't know where a mechanic is going to come in and own a house. I can't see it clearly. if he will not have this levy cut from his earnings, which are nowhere anyway, in the systems of government, this mechanic then will not have a first priority to own a house. Because if I'm the one being deducted, then I'll first apply to get that house. So we really need to work on mortgage in this country with banks. You know, let the bank come and assess from where you work, privately or employed by the government. If we leave it to banks, it will be so good. But I also give it to government for trying. If you go to Japan today, there are excess of houses. In fact, they are idle. Houses are more than people who need them. But it is courtesy of a proper system by the government. So if you want to own a house and you feel like you know where to go, you are given the terms and conditions, you choose a site, you pay. But come to Kenya, we are not very well organized. Even in this one, still I see so many loopholes in it. But I would like those in charge to fine-tune it, because housing is a problem in this country. Let me tell you, Olive, one thing. A person is able to pay 30,000 every month at Keno to a very, what would I say? Because sometimes they are exploitative, the landlords. They would increase their rents anytime they wish. But find out how many people are comfortably paying between 20 and 30,000 per month. Suppose there was a system. That person has been working for the last 10 years, has been paying rent of between 20 and 50,000 per month for the last 10 years. Is that person supposed to have owned a house by now? Then who has failed that person? Because clearly people have money to pay rent, but even this thing of 3% rent levy is not actually capturing the right basket of people. So I would say we need to expand it. Because even this issue of taxation, I still feel as a citizen, we still don't tax a huge number of Kenyans who are getting huge amounts of money every month or every day.
Okay. And we'll get more into the finance bill. Mulo, I'll give you a chance to weigh in on that as well. But Wanja Maina, good morning.
Good morning, Olive. Good
morning, to see you.
MTV viewers. Good morning, everyone.
All right. You mentioned the Japanese, Solomon, but the Japanese are a very different breed of people to Kenyans. Yeah. But Wanja, this statement I see
we learn from the best.
I see a statement here that President William Ruto also took a swipe at unions, accusing them of siding with employers. The unions say up to 52% if these taxes are implemented, these deductions. Up to 52%, they'll give up to 52% of their paychecks, their pay slips, and they say they were not consulted. Francis Atwoli, I mean, on this one, he's on the other side. The unions that I saw, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, UASU, the University Academic Staff Union, KUSU, and all these people are on the other side. What does it say to you? Does it say to you, as President William Ruto is, the point that President William Ruto has made here, that he took a swipe at unions, accusing them of siding with employers?
Thank you very much. So unionism, to have union, people forming unions, and which has a lot to do with, even with agitation for rights, is not a new phenomenon. In fact, it is as old as the history of the independence of Kenya. If you look at people like Tom Mboya, who is one of the most prominent trade unionists, it was out of the forming unions and agitating for the rights of black workers when they were working for white people and Indians, that sort of now they combined with the freedom fighters, and before you know it, we had the independence of this country. So it is even a right, it's a right to be in a union. And as you know, unions are the voice of their members. Kenya National Union of Teachers is the voice. I have a sibling who is a teacher, but he's busy in class. So Kenya National Union of Teachers is the voice that is speaking for him and his fellow teachers. So if the union is the voice of the workers, then when they say that they are siding with the employers, I don't know if they mean that the union is in the side, is not supporting the worker, or the union is supporting the worker. But that said, if it's, we are talking about this issue of housing, for me, I would say that to be in a house, whether to rent or whether to live in a house, is a personal decision. And it is also not very practical. Say, let's go to a rural county like Nyandarua. There's a person who is, okay, it's where Solomon comes from. let's just use it. There's a person who is working in the county in Olkalau, but they are coming from their own home, because it's like they live, that's their rural home. So they already have a house. So this issue of owning a house, is it an issue that is tied to all? So if I have my own house in Gatondo, why do I need another house? Why do I need to pay for another apartment in Nairobi, for example? And then issue 2, so what does that mean? That means that there are people whose source of income is being a landlord and building rental houses. So are we saying that very soon we shall not have building houses and renting them out as a source of income? Thirdly, there has always been a huge mistrust between people and the government, and that has partly been contributed to rampant corruption. Yesterday I saw someone in opposition saying that this is an Anglo-leasing in the making. This housing fund, 3%, 2%, even the people who are selling it to Kenyans, they are not very clear. They have not seen the issue to the end. Yani, the people in Kenya Kwanza, when they are selling the concept to the people, they don't seem to have seen it to the end. They are struggling like you and I. So if you're taking my 3% and you don't understand that model up to the very end, why should I trust you with my 3%? And also, we also ought to be cognizant of the fact that there's a huge inequality in Kenya. In as much as there are people who earn 200K, 300K, 400K, there's also a huge percent of people who are in the 15K, 20K, 30K. So when we look at those people, I'm very sure that owning an apartment in Nairobi is not at the top of their list, because they are yet to properly meet their basics. So what are we saying to these people? And most importantly, is just the issue of public participation. And one of the beauty of public participation is ownership of a project. We've seen it done. We saw universal health coverage in what now was called piloting. You want the people to be in the same wavelength as you. Now, if you've not paid my salary as a government worker, and then before you know it, last month they were saying they are not paid. Before you know it, you are paying me kidogo, now you want to take my 3%. Why should I entrust you with my 3%? So I see a lot of vagueness. I see a lot of, it's ambiguous, it's not clear. I see people who the money is taken from not having owned this project. There's no ownership of this 3%. Not many people are very happy with you taking their 3%. On top of that, there is a huge cost of living. And you see, the thing with the huge cost of living means... Okay,
I'll stop you there, Wanja, because we'll get into the cost of living. But Omulo, there seems not to be a clear understanding of how this 3% is going to be managed, right? Is it a situation where it's a kitty, where the monies are pulled together to finance the construction of these homes, and then they will be made available to those at the bottom of the pyramid that are being mentioned here by the mechanics that Solomon is talking about, and the ones earning 15,000 shillings or thereabouts? Is it about them? So is this just a kitty and I am making an investment, as you are saying, and then after 7 years, I will get a return on my investment? But clearly there seems to be a disconnect in understanding.
Sure.
Like you were talking about an issue of communication.
Yeah, the issue of communication and also consultation, because you must consult the stakeholders, those who are involved. And that one, I cannot lie, the government is not working so hard on that. So it is our responsibility now to tell people what it means by saying that 3% is being deducted, because it's not specific, whether it is deducted on the whole amount. There are things that Kenyans need to understand. One is that owning a house is a right under Article 43, economic rights. Every Kenyan has a right to own a decent house. And that's why I'm telling Wanja not to say that it's a personal decision. There are people who have land, they have houses, but there are people who do not have. So sometimes we need to plan for our people. So it is a right. Secondly, there are things we need to know about the 3%. One, to whose advantage is it? You know, you are giving 3%, your employee is also adding another 3%. So it means that your saving is increasing. The moment you give 3% deducted from your salary, the employer is also giving you additional 3%. So it means that this money is going to be consolidated and it's going to be meant for the housing finance plan. So it means that you are saving. The government is taxing those who are working, or we say the wealthy, to fund the poor. So it means that it's a good plan. The whole plan is not touching the poor, but it's touching those who are able. You know, the principle of taxation dictates that you can only tax where a person who is able to pay. So the 3% also does not exceed 5,000. So it means that that is why I was saying that it's not pegged on the total amount, but it will be calculated on the amount that you are able to pay, which does not exceed 5,000. Again, about the 3%, the moment you are deducted this 3%, it means that you also allow, because we have housing deficit, from the 50,000 to 250,000 housing that the government needs to contract. So far, the government is planning to construct around 200,000 houses annually. So it means that these are a serious plan that will allow Kenyans to also pay mortgage, because these people who are working, from MCAs, MPs, and even those who are paid by government, the civil servant, they have an opportunity to access mortgage. But you look at the model for mortgage, it is a loan that you are deducted, you pay for a certain period of time. But this is a saving plan, which means you are saving with the government. But now you allow the government to borrow your money. It's like the government is borrowing your money, but the government will pay you back on interest. You can access this money after a certain period of time, whether you want to build a house or you want to own a house or not. So it means the government will still give you back your money. So it is a saving plan. It is not a loan or a tax that people talk about. That is what needs to go there. People need to understand seriously. Again, the parliament also has allowed the public under Article 118 also to present their memorandum. So I think it is just a proposal. People should not preempt, what Wanje is saying, that, it is an Anglo leasing in the making. You cannot preempt something that has not yet started. So I think the government is developing a framework that now will allow people to argue, because I think people will also bring their ideas. They will say, now we need this money or we don't need it. So, but government is willing to allow people now to discuss. I don't think union people are genuine, because I don't know whether nowadays they represent the interests of their members or they just talk from both sides of their mouth. Sometimes
that's a serious allegation. Omulo, that's a very serious allegation. Can you back it up?
Nowadays you see how they talk. One, they are talking about pay rise. They are talking about the negotiations with the government.
But everybody's talking about pay rise. Yesterday I hosted MCAs who also want a pay rise.
But they need to understand that things have changed. We have new government. This government of Kenya Kwanza, you are only paid according to your performance under the government contracting. So it is no longer what people used to say, you make noise and you're paid. Things have changed. That's why we have CRC, Commission for whatever. How do you call it?
SRC.
SRC. So you are paid according to your performance and the value that you're adding to the government. So all these bargaining things that they are talking about, as things have nowadays changed. So you cannot blackmail a government or a president to pay or to give you an additional pay. But you can only do that through either petitioning the Commission for Salary Review or whatever platform that is allowed by the Constitution. So the reason why I'm saying that they're not representing the interests of the people, if Atuli is saying that it was consulted and they discussed this, I don't know to what extent that the unions are now saying that they are not willing, without even interrogating the process and even the framework for this 3%. So they are allowed by the Constitution to present their memorandum, and also they are allowed to be consulted. And that's why I said earlier that the government needs to consult these stakeholders. They need to be brought on board so that they can understand the gist of it, they can understand the whole idea, so that they can also communicate to their members without, causing criticism or misunderstanding within the members, because people say, oh, 3% is a big amount, because they're trying to calculate the 3% with the total amount of salary they are paid. So, sometimes this mixed reaction need to settle, and I think the president should now, instead of waiting for, the unions to go to parliament, they need to be called, they need to be, consulted, they need to be, solve the idea, so that if they agree, now when they go to parliament to present their memorandum, they are presenting what they understand. They should not present what they don't understand.
Omulo, it sounds to me a little bit like you're browbeating unions to agree with you that they either get on board or get, but they have a right to make noise.
Yeah. They have a right, but they should not be talking about, they're calling them the mother of all the strikes in this country without understanding the real idea. Sometimes they needed to call out the president,
but then again, it comes
to
back
sit with them.
Who is at fault?
Yeah. Who
proposed this without first engaging the worker? What
we need, as I say, this country is bigger than individuals or even unions. What they need, if the president has, is not consulting anyone, or maybe has slipped in another way, they should call out the president to come to the table. They should say the president should allow them to sit with him and understand the idea. We need to have a working environment where people can consult each other. It does not mean that the president calls a union to consult, but they can also call the president. They consult all of them. Before, if they agree,
they call the president.
They can call the president. They can ask the president, you've come up with an idea. You've come up with an idea. Now let us sit and discuss, because sometimes it is good to understand.
No, but the proposer of whatever this is the one who should seek out the stakeholders, in my view, in my humble opinion.
And also, now that just come in, just briefly.
I need to take a break, Wanja. Okay. So we'll come back after the break. I have the finance bill here open in front of me. I'm scrolling to the bit on the housing levy. I also have a copy of, what is it called? The Daily Nation, Sunday Daily Nation, where Parliament published the call for submission of memoranda. So we'll be seeking to get some clarity, because inakaa kidogo hatuelewani on the other side of this break.
Are you a mom or a mom-to-be? Join us at Westgate Mall from 13th and 14th May 2023 for Baby Fair. Discover the latest trends and innovations in baby care and wellness. Get expert advice and access to a variety of products and services to help you take care of your little ones. With booths, talks, workshops, games, and competitions, there is something for everyone. Don't miss out on this unforgettable event.
Hata Wajakoya alikuwa na lookalike before the elections, but immediately after kulienda vile ilienda, huyo lookalike alianza kutafuta job ya kufanana na Rick Ross.
And you see, in aviation we don't have room for errors. So if I am saying alpha, it has to be alpha.
Inamaanisha kwa aviation, A for apple, you leave at the door.
A for apple, yes.
Ndege ni yako, lakini airspace sio yako.
Hata kama nitainuka tu juu ya nyumba kidogo, like
hiyo ni airspace yetu.
If you can see traffic,
yes,
like
yes.
You can't be on the plane. Only see Simon, as in.
No. The thing is, no. From a pilot perspective,
yes.
We don't like seeing other planes.
Get ready to tantalize your taste buds and embark on a culinary journey with Pishi Bomba, the ultimate cooking show that brings the flavors of the world right into your living room. Tune in this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. with me, Claire Karatu, for a mouth-watering adventure.
Pishi Bomba, in association with Coca-Cola.
Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime, and shopping vouchers.
Happy Mother's Day to each and every mom out there.
And maybe in Mental Health Awareness Month, this week on Crossover, we take time to have a conversation around postpartum depression.
And in studio, we'll be joined by a psychologist, Anthony Njenga, and a young mom, Sandra Wanjiro.
So save the date and join us this Sunday from 11:30 to 1 p.m. only on NTV.
God bless you, mama. Tell a neighbor to tell a neighbor.
And tell a friend to tell a friend.
To cross over.
Shukurani zangu. Shukurani zangu. Asante Baba.
Wanja is telling me amezingirwa na watu wa Kenya Kwanza. She needs more airtime. Wanja, will give you airtime. But first, let's take a look at what the finance bill actually says about the housing fund or the housing levy. This is the Employment Act 2007 is amended by inserting the following new section immediately after section 31A, and this now becomes 31B. An employer shall pay, let me just zoom in a little bit more. I want to make sure we can all see it. Jonte is my director. Is that better? Yes. An employer shall pay to the National Housing Development Fund established under Section 7 of the Housing Act in respect of each employee, the employer's contribution at 3% of the employee's monthly basic salary, and the employee's contribution at 3% of the employee's monthly basic salary, provided that the sum of the employer and the employee contributing shall not exceed 5,000 shillings a month. The benefits to an employee shall accrue as follows. Here we go. For employees who qualify for affordable housing, the contributions accrue to the employee and shall be used to finance the purchase of a home under the affordable housing scheme. Or for employees who are not eligible for affordable housing upon the expiry of 7 years from the date of the start of making the contributions or after the attainment of retirement age, whichever is earlier, A, a transfer of their contributions to a retirement benefits scheme or pension scheme registered with the Retirement Benefits Authority. Let me see. So this is at the end of 7 years or after the attainment of retirement age. Okay. A transfer of their contributions to any person registered and eligible for affordable housing under the National Housing Development Fund, or a transfer of their contributions to their spouse or dependent children, or to receive their contributions in cash, provided that contributions paid out in cash shall be included in the contributor's taxable income for the year and be subjected to tax at the prevailing rate. So I'll take that again. To receive their contributions in cash, provided that contributions paid out in cash shall be included in the contributor's taxable income for the year and be subjected to tax at the prevailing rates. All contributions shall get a return based on the return to the fund. An employer shall remit both employee and employer contributions to the National Housing Development Fund before the 9th day of the following month after the deduction was made. The Cabinet Secretary responsible for matters relating to housing, in consultation with the Cabinet Secretary responsible for matters relating to finance, shall make regulations prescribing the qualifications, and I guess this is the sticking point, qualifications to participate in the affordable housing scheme, right? What are these regulations? Let us see. This section shall become effective on the date the regulations made under subsection 5 come into operation. Yes, and that is it. Wanja, I promised you the opportunity to respond.
Okay, right. Olive, I think that issue of housing, I wonder if you want to sell a product, do you do the product testing first before now you bring it to the people? because as my friend Omolo here is saying that we should consult, we should sit at the table. Probably that should have been done before. You know, you don't climb a tree from the top. Allow me to ask. They are referring to it as a 3% house levy or house fund or whatever.
Savings.
The question should be, why not 1%? Why not 2%? Why not 10%? You see, how did they arrive at 3%? And that also now brings about the issue of mistrust, because people will say, this is not my decision. What if someone, you know, Omolo is saying we should be able to lend to the government. What if I do not want to lend to the government? And
what if you don't want to do what?
To lend.
Oh, okay.
You know, saying they are keeping the money. What if, and you know, Kenya is a country where people have always found ways of surviving. For example, SACCOs. I know there are these chama to small safety nets where maybe that 3% to another person is going to another project that is deemed to be more important. If you're coming at my pay as you want, and then now you have gone ahead to describe how you want me to use my other amount, the net salary, I see it being opposed. And you know, the beauty of it is that amongst the people who are very unhappy with this is actually people who are traditionally supporting Kenya Kwanza. So I wonder, what is this that has led to so much anger, including in their inner circles? So for me, the bottom line is ownership of the project, how they arrived at the figure. But I might add that there's so much taxing going around. In fact, now moving forward, if the proposals in the finance bill are anything to go by, they're even taxing our beauty. Do you know that there's increase in makeup, increase in lipstick, increase in Q-Tex, increase in lip gloss? In fact,
Omolo is serious. Omolo is laughing, but it's very serious.
It's actually very serious, and that is an issue that concerns all women, even the women who are of low income. They always have a smaller 200 to buy lipsticks and foundations. The increase in beauty products, mostly used for women, has increased by 316%. It was shillings 0.6 per stamp, and now it is shillings 2.5 per stamp. But if you do the calculation, the increase, you're taxing beauty. Beauty is being treated as a luxury. Now, surely, we can't be lacking basics, and now we are being told to remain ugly. You know, we beautify ourselves to manage some few challenges.
Speaking of point of views, the argument though is that this is an industry that employs many.
Yes.
So you're basically, Omolo, it's been argued that you're fighting the hustler,
yes,
whose interests you're meant to be championing, aside from by personal preference for
lipsticks and
makeup and all that. But yeah, I'd like to move us along. Quickly take a look at what else is on the front pages of the dailies. Karibu sana advice, Mundalo.
Asante.
Good morning.
Morning.
Why do I feel like I'm forgetting something? It'll come to me, it'll come to me. Yeah. All right, we see Safaricom Miles high value loans with more bank deals. Telco wants to partner with more banks to build a marketplace for credit. I've remembered before I get into this, Wanja, and maybe I'll pose this to advice now that you're here. Advice, you know, Azimio has taken issue with the housing levy, saying there were no consultations, etc, etc. Well and good. But then, you know, we are the same ones who will clamor that, oh, Kenya Kwanza, you haven't delivered on the right to housing. What solutions? You know, other than just fighting everything that is coming from the Kenya Kwanza corner, what solutions is Azimio? I mean, what are you proposing alternatively? And sorry to put you in the hot seat so soon after your arrival, but I know you can swim.
Thank you, Olive. First of all, good morning to my colleagues and Kenyans at large. My apologies for coming late. Now, on that question,
housing.
On the housing issue, first of all, it is not a preserve of Azimio to have solutions for Kenya Kwanza administration.
No, but I mean, you can't just criticize.
The alternative
when you go to an election, both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza presented manifesto and they presented their issues to Kenyans. Kenya Kwanza administration was taken to be the better option. And Kenya Kwanza kept saying that they had a plan. First of all, remember, there has been no history of Kenyans complaining that they have a housing problem. As a matter of fact, according to the 2019 census report, over 80% of Kenyans are comfortable with their housing. So housing is not necessarily a big issue for Kenyans, but Kenya Kwanza decided that it is going to be a big issue, which where I agree with them is the fact that despite the fact that people have housing, it is not necessarily in the best of ways. It is not necessarily the best housing that you can want for in this century, in the 2023 dispensation. But then the implementation of it, they must implement it in a manner that does not, again, oppress the same Kenyan that they came to fight for. And so, be that as it may, the opposition is right when they say that you need to consult us on this. Why? Because their formula of implementation is directly affecting the earnings of the people. It is directly affecting the civil servants. It's directly affecting the landlords. It's directly affecting the business people. So for a model where you are supposed to actually start taxing people the more, for a model where civil servants are supposed to pay for those houses the more, for a model where civil servants are supposed to pay for houses which they do not know exactly where they will land. Like you come from Kisumu and then you will have a retirement home in Makadara. You come from Mombasa and then you end up with a retirement home in Pangani. For as long as it was supposed to now involve the earnings of the people and the formula with which they cannot be so sure about, then consultation was extremely necessary. The idea of housing is good enough. It is good for us to push for modest housing in this century. It is right that people actually get the right living conditions. But for as long as it's going to directly affect their earnings, then they must be consulted, Olive. Even when NTV wants to start doing other deductions to your salary, it is only prudent that they are able to consult you.
All right, so I will put a pin in that conversation. But Wanja, you asked about the 3%. I'm no expert, but I'm assuming it's a benchmark figure, right? Like maybe it's standard across several jurisdictions, best practice. I don't know. We'll allow them to explain. All right, so I started reading this story. Safaricom mulls high-value loans with more bank deals. Telco wants to partner with more banks to build. I'll ask Julian Zamboko actually. Julian, if you're watching, tell us what this 3% figure is pegged on. I'll give him a ring in case he hasn't heard me. Telco wants to partner with more banks to build a marketplace for credit, allowing it to lend high-value loans without directly assuming the risk of the capital as it looks for new ways to reverse its declining earnings. Now unions demand pay for junior high teachers. This was also raised by the Anglican Church of Kenya. Junior secondary school teachers recruited by the Teacher Service Commission in January have not been paid for the past 4 months. The Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers have now called on the TSC to release the salaries to enable the affected 35,500 teachers to meet their financial needs. Their qualifications were also called, for some of them, called into question. Let's take a look at the Standard. Aha, here we have it. This one I will ask you to weigh in on, my good people. Blackmail that saved Ruto from ICC jaws. I know we haven't read the book, so I will not ask you about details contained in the book. Have you, by the way, I may be presuming, Omulo, were you at the book launch last night?
I was not there.
You were not? Yeah. Did you get an advance copy? Yeah.
Not
signed?
Yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
I was there virtually.
In the pipeline?
It was live. It was live on their social media, so I was watching virtually. But
you attended virtually?
Yes.
All right. With the West favoring one party in elections, while Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto are facing trial at the International Criminal Court, the two had aces up their sleeves: China Factor and UK Defense Contract Agreement. This is the book. For the record, Aden Duale, I see that the Standard is serializing portions of it. I like Wanja, but this was after the fact this morning. I was listening to some of the speeches that were delivered. I listened to Rigi G, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Musalia Mudavadi, who said that he was asked by Aden Duale to speak on Madimoni, and he said since it was at night, you will tell us, your party leader Omulo, stop sending me side-eye, but your party leader said since it was at night, and he was raised not to be discussing ghosts at night. He did not say anything on that. I listened as well to the president. And a word, if I was to get, I don't want to be too American, but I say $1, but if I was to get 100 bob for every time the phrase politics of deceit was used I could take you to Java for breakfast this morning. Your thoughts? Is it a case of Hamja move on, Omulo, or what is all this politics of deceit narrative that is continuing? You know, Rigathi Gachagua told us if he was to write, Kenyans are not ready for the truth, but he's a truthful man, so he's waiting for the time when we will acclimatize.
That's right. I think Chinua Achebe says in his book that you don't wait for someone to write your story, you write it yourself. And I think that is what Duale is doing. He's just giving an account on what happened, which Kenyans have a right to know, because sometimes this politics play at the backstage. Sometimes people do not understand the intrigues in the political scenes. And it also portrays the politics of deceit, blackmail, and I think my party leader welcomed the two who came to his house, and he gave them tea and some mandazis with a good proposal that they wanted him to be the presidential candidate. But at the end of the day, it was a game of there are some people who are not so sure, and they were not supporting that cause, and they were able to convince the president, the former president, that the proposal was not good enough, that they only needed to push on and advocate for the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, to become the president. So it was a betrayal. At the same time, it was a good proposal, but they were not sure whether they would come out of the ICC hook. They were also not sure whether they were going to be supported by Kenyans, having passed through a lot of allegations on the post-election violence. So I think calling Musalia Madimoni, I think because they thought he was not the proposer. Actually, these people came to him. So I think that was not a good language to use, because he was not expecting, after all. He was not contesting. As a leader in this country, he also had his right to participate as a presidential candidate. But now when you bring proposal to him and say he's a Madimoni, expecting that he was also expecting you to give him or hand over power to him, that was not the case. So I think it is just giving an account on behind the scene political play within the former regime, and also how things happened during ICC, with a lot of interest at the international arena and also in the national arena. Okay. I've not read the book, but I know very soon, even us, as we age on, we'll also write a book on what transpires in this Kenyan politics.
All right. Solomon, what do you make of the repeated use of politics of betrayal, politics of deceit, at the launch of this book? Is it indicative of Kenya Kwanza that remains, I need to be careful with my choice of words, but focused on former President Uhuru Kenyatta?
I think I got the book like a week ago.
Okay.
I'm reading it, and let me tell you, I'm liking the book. And this is not an advert for Duale, but he has done a very good job. This book is so interesting. It's not only focusing on blackmail, and it's also giving us a space to learn how politicians conduct themselves, away from the camera, when we are not there. You know, in this country, I've seen.
But you're there. You've been behind the curtain.
I mean, Duale was bold enough to write about it, because most politicians live, two-sided lives. You would find, say for instance, a women member of parliament. They are commonly known as women reps. Going to the village, with some dress that are almost sweeping the crowd. Just now to tell their voters that, I'm a good woman, well brought up, African, I've been taught how to wear nicely and properly. Once they get to Remuru or Mombasa Road,
is that in the
they
book?
even have some, clothes in their cars. They change. And now come back to Nairobi with some miniskirts and stuff. So
is that in the book?
So, no, it's not. I'm saying now he opened up something that I would not want to mention on this show. But he's talked of some...
you can't paint all women reps with one brush.
No, I'm saying, I just gave an example that politicians do that. Let me now give something else that Duale used, that now involving men, so that you also get comfortable. He talked about some noises in some hotels in Naivasha. Yeah. how he couldn't sleep and all that.
Really?
So he,
I
yes.
must get myself a copy of
young
this
women
book.
as laptops.
Yeah, you need to get a copy of that book, because it is giving how politicians live away from us.
It is giving tea.
Yes, and also the deals that you know people get into away from us, the citizens. But you also have to agree with that story of Kalonzo. Still purely this blackmail. When he told, and that story has been with us for the last like 10 years. Kalonzo told Uhuru and Ruto, you guys are going to hell for 10 years. By then they had gone to him, you know, as the sitting vice president for advice. How do you see this? Now, the minimum you guys can get is 10. But by the time you come back, I will have finished my term, my 2 terms as the president. So he really wanted to scare them from...
Wait, this is not Bartok, this is in the book?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Get a copy. So that's what Kalonzo did, and that story has been, that's why I'm telling you, Duale has been able to capture this for us, for this generation to understand, you know, at least how politics are run in this country. He has been able to document almost everything for the entire period of time he has been there as a politician. And Duale, you have to give it to him. He has been very consistent in his way of doing politics. He has enough experience. This is a book I would encourage any student of political science, law, anyone with interest in politics to just buy. Anyone who really doesn't know much about politics, just read this and know, just before you get into politics, just know where you are getting yourself into.
Right.
But
Si umemuzia kitabu. Mwambia akutumie commissions. So, but let me
it's a good book.
Let me advise, you know,
Yes.
just, I don't know whether like myself, you like myself and Wanja, were able to listen to some of what was said at the launch, or do you also get yourself an advanced copy of the book?
No, I'm not as deep as Solomon Kuria. And I think the rate at which Solomon is moving into the deep state of Kenya Kwanza and getting books faster than Omulo is becoming...
It's not a Kenya Kwanza book.
It's becoming worrying. But then on the subject of book writing and politics, I think so far it's 1-1. Azimio has done 1 book. Kenya Kwanza has now done 1, so we are more or less in
Are we keeping score?
Yeah, we should in this country. But then the most important thing about, and where I agree with Solomon, is that there is a bit of political sanity that comes with the writing of these books. Because people are then held to account. People then get to know that what I do today will be documented. And therefore, it keeps some record, and we're able to start running away from a bit of a political insanity. Because the moment now politicians start getting aware that, you know, what we are doing, we don't know who will record all this stuff and put them in a book at some point. So we are more held to our promises. We want to really not run away from our promises, because we will be held to account. We don't want to promise things that will not deliver, because we'll be held to account. We don't want to keep conniving and having funny meetings to discuss matters that are not necessarily beneficial, because we know somebody will be able to hold to account. So I really think that culture is already good enough. And now, though I do not agree with Omolo when he says that at some point we'll also grow old and write books, because I don't think book writing is a reserve of old age. Actually, I think some of the people who should be able to be writing books right now should be some of us on this panel, especially Solomon, who was the first official of Azimio to resign. He should be able to be writing books and telling us why those kind of things happen, so that even the young generation today can be able to know, as we get into politics, these are the things that our colleagues did. These are the things, some of us who are privileged, myself and Kuria, to sit on the Azimio campaign secretariat at the helm of it. There are things that we were able to experience that many of our colleagues have not experienced. And so if we are able to document such kind of things, we are going to raise a better caliber of leaders, a better caliber of politicians. So it is not necessarily a reserve of the old. So I'm encouraging Omulo to start writing a book immediately after this show and tell us why he has been in 4 political parties within a span of about 5 years.
I need to defend myself.
Is that not? Let Macha come in first.
If I could just come in and say that A story that deserves to be told does not forgive silence. I think that's a quote I saw on the internet sometimes back. So when a person is able to give their side of the story, I feel like it's a very important thing, because we who have seen Aden Duale on media when he was the leader of Majority, we saw him in one way. But now I feel like this book has really humanized him. Certainly he has made well of himself growing up in a marginalized county. So I feel like he empowered himself with his own story. That said, I could also not, I was very curious to know the invitation list and who was writing it, because in my eyes it looked like it was a Kenya Kwanza affair at the launch. And so I wondered, were other people really invited? Certainly I could tell that the event was also crowded with a lot of political, as you say, politics of deceit. You could also tell that there were people who seems like at any given time, and just before the launch, he was also on JKL Live, and you could tell that he was really majoring on deceit. Someone did not treat them well. It is also not very, if we just look at how they were talking, you could tell that they meant the Jubilee side and Uhuru Kenyatta and the team that kicked them out, because in one of the chapters he's talking about how he lost his job in 22 minutes and what have you. So certainly, even as much as it's in his own story, I saw a lot of Kenya Kwanza politics coming in. But it's fairer to comment on a book you've read from cover to cover. But probably a challenge to also our other leaders to write their books. For me, I'd be very curious to read Martha Karua's book. I'd be very curious to read Johansen Odor. You know Johansen Odor, I just hear in these high-profile funny murders or public interest. So for me, and I hope
is it something you can write about though? I think they have some
secrets.
Okay, obviously he won't say I found him without a head, but just there's an angle of I was just right at the middle of it. Sometimes the media is all over him. I know he has a story, and you can just tell his name is mentioned where there is a big issue, Shakahola, what have you. So he's one person who really interests me when I watch him on TV. Certainly Martha Karua, you know, she's just a first in everything. Charity Ngilu. Some of these women have such profound and beautiful stories. You know, so I think for me it's a challenge to many of us to start documenting our experiences, and just to agree with Mundalo, it's not a reserve of the old. Because you find that most
pia nyinyi mmefanywa character development in politics.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, because most books unaonanga ni za watu either they are old or they have even died. Some books are written when, you know, like for example, Omamo. I want to believe that his book was published by his children recently, but he passed on. So you would have been very curious to see what he'd have to say if he was alive. Certainly it was a good thing, but it's a challenge to many people to document their experiences, not only politicians, even people in the corporate, you as a journalist and your experiences in the newsroom, many other people, teachers, because sometimes it's a challenge when you go to a bookshop. I usually go to Prestige shop, and most of the books that are biographies, you agree, they are mostly, you don't find many Kenyan stories. You find maybe Western, South Africans. So it's a challenge to many of us, yeah.
All right, Omula, I promised you a right of reply.
Yeah. You know, for the record, it is important.
You have not been in 5 parties.
Actually, I've only participated in 2 political parties. ODM, which of course, according to this book, everybody came from ODM.
I had Rigathi Gachagua say that.
Yes, all of them came from ODM, but they left because of betrayal and deceit. And that's why I left. I've only participated in 2 political parties. That is ODM and ANC, which currently I'm a director. Secondly, I don't believe in writing a book at this moment, because I would rather do a story or a movie. Because if you want to hide information, put it in a book. How many Kenyans read actually such kind of books?
Very many.
Not many. You know, Kenyans are very busy. Maybe certain class of people, they read this kind of book. Because first of all, the pricing of that book, people do business with this kind of book. They make profit out of it. Secondly, where the books are found, because sometimes there are so many Kenyans who are not so much well informed. They don't know where to get that book. So I think sometimes we need to change tact and either do a movie or a story, you pay a media station, you do a story, you know, many Kenyans will watch. Many Kenyans will watch. Because now they are giving us the burden of explaining to Kenyans what sometimes we're also reading. So at this moment,
they're all about enterprise.
At this moment, if advice wants to write a book, I don't know what he's going to write about, because he's yet to gain some experience either in public sector and even political arena. Currently, maybe just write about his party secretary general, about Kioni and the Mandamano. So sometimes it is also good to gain experience and write what people will also want to, you know, to read. But I agree with Wanja. Sometimes there are people, unique people, we need to hear from them. We need their story. It's not about politics all the time. Sometimes we want to know what is happening behind the scene, especially with the first hand, the Shakahola, those who died, the political assassination, what are the reports? You know, there are a lot of things in this country that Kenyans need to know, but not through writing a book. Maybe
you can buy the rights to
already.
Currently, hold on the record.
For the
record. Yeah. Perhaps you can buy the rights to the book and produce a movie.
Produce a movie.
Yes.
I think I'll be thinking about that. It will be a unique thing, as opposed to writing a very big book which Kenyans will not take time to read.
We shall help
we will take a break at this point. We'll continue the conversation on the state of the nation on the other side.
He threw 3 free throws. He threw 3 free throws. He threw free.
What can break even if you never pick it up or touch it?
To me, I think it's a promise.
Because you can break a promise without touching it.
I'm going to show you how to make a beam balance using locally available materials.
Imagine a place where wishes come true. What if I told you that place is within reach? All you have to do is give your wish to me.
Look at these dolphins behind me. Unbelievable.
Whoa. We're all ready to pull and get this giraffe up into the crate.
Niaje guys, your boy Ferdinando Manyala na kuja kwa show Kipkeno Classic. Na nilipromise African record. Naivunja 13th of May. See you.
Watch the chase for glory. The ABSA Kipkeno Classic Continental Tour. 13th of May, live on NTV.
This week on the best of.
You count them one by one?
We count by approximation method.
We scale up the fish industry.
This is the pride of Kamuganga.
We listen to a fish tale or two.
So when the male is on heat, they change their color. They change to pink or red.
And we meet the big fish in the game.
These are known as the ornamental fish.
Ornamental fish?
Ornamental fish.
An episode that's quite the catch.
This is the biggest hatchery in Kenya. Yes, our capacity is 2.3 million.
On the best of fish farms.
With Molfix pants, changing diapers is now very easy. I tear and take off the used Molfix pants and pull the new one up in a moment. Wrap up the used diaper and throw it away. Come on, mothers, try Molfix baby pants and be part of our happiness movement.
Welcome back to AM Live. Let me give feedback before I forget. Wanja, you're saying you love the Taifa Leo headlines?
Yes.
Now that it's here, open in front of me, we'll look at it. But first, because you guys have decided we don't want peace, we want violence. Here, Mimi Sinichome. All right, let's start with the Business Daily. Headline story, rich Kenyans get helicopter tax cuts in Ruto budget plan. Let's see the details that have been provided here. Bill scraps importation declaration fee, VAT, and railway levy. Kenyans bought 726 aircraft last year, a marginal dip. Wealthy Kenyans and politicians will import helicopters and planes at cheaper prices after President William Ruto's administration proposed to scrap 3 taxes on aircraft and parts at a time the Treasury plans to hit the middle class with higher fuel and salary taxes to fund the 3.59 trillion shilling budget. In the Finance Bill 2023, the government proposes to exempt importers of aircraft, especially choppers, from paying the 16% value-added tax, while scrapping the 3.5% import declaration fee and the 2% railway development levy. Compare with this. Where we Taifa Leo, ugali kuzidi kuwa gali. Matumaini ya Wakenya kununua unga wa bei nafuu yanaendelea kufifia baada ya wasagaji unga kusema hawana mahindi ya kutosha. Chama cha wasagaji nafaka wasema wakulima wadogo wanaidai serikali milioni 500 na hawana pesa za kuagiza nafaka kutoka nje. Aha. Compare and contrast. Omulo, you spoke last.
Yes.
Solomon.
I think we have an option. If you can't drive, you can fly. Let me talk about maize or the cost of unga, because that's where the citizens are. First, thank God for the rains, because largely agriculture in this country, I would say, is not so much under the control of government policies. In fact, we are under natural, dispensations by the Almighty God. If it rains and we have enough rains, then we have a good harvest and we are good to go. Because clearly you can see right now a lot of flood waters going to waste. We should be harvesting that water so that in the period of between January or maybe December and March or April, we shall be irrigating our lands and having enough produce. By September, I think we are 3 months now, or 4 months, I think we are going to have some maize. And I'm waiting for that day when this debate will be over of maize. What we need in this country is to empower farmers. We cannot always be talking about importing maize. And let me tell you, in the current world, you have heard of nuclear warfare. People are no longer going to fight there with vifaru and machine guns and stuff. You have heard of biochemical weapons. The other weapon that can really, wipe out a whole population is food. If you rely on food which is imported, you guys are going to die of cancer and other lifestyle diseases. It's very easy for another country to target you. You have no maize.
So you're saying this is a national security issue?
Yes. Food is a national security issue. A country that cannot feed itself is vulnerable to attacks from another, from another country.
Okay.
So food is actually an issue that we should discuss, and we must tell government, this one and the others that are coming, that it is not actually an achievement to import maize, rice, millet. It is not. In fact, every time we import, we should hold prayers and like we are mourning. We have imported because we didn't have an idea. But we are doing ABCD to avoid importing next time.
All right. Advice, naona hapa unga wa dola is retailing at 188 shillings. Meanwhile, kwingine, nilikwambia compare and contrast, naona wenye watakuwa wakinunua mahelikopta, ndege, hawatakuwa wakilipa 16% VAT. Even as Wanja tells us, those of us who need assistance, we are paying more in taxes.
I think the two issues are not necessarily riding on the same terrain. It's only that to make our politics more interesting, we love contrasting those two, and we have a culture in Kenya where we think when we demonize the rich, then that makes the country look better. I don't think so. The rich are Kenyans just like any other person. But then on the subject of food, I would want to say that it is high time we start not using food matters to score political bonga points, because we end up putting Kenyans in a very bad and precarious situation, because food is critical. And I agree with Solomon when he says the food element is not something that we should be able to meddle around and be happy even about importation. The issue of food was used highly during the political time. You remember when there was a crisis across the world and food prices were going high, one side of the political side chose to tell Kenyans that it is basically because someone shook hands with the other. And immediately after swearing in, this will be able to come down to, I think, 170 shillings. That is a food matter you're talking about to Kenyans, and they will buy it. And so when that does not happen in record time, you cause a lot of disillusionment in the country. So I think it is an issue that, first of all, we must, as people in the political arena, we should stop politicizing matters of food, despite the reality that I agree that the administration has really tried to do something, including subsidization of production for the long term, which is a good plan that the government has. But I have a problem with people suffering today as we wait to be okay tomorrow, because again, matters of food can end up with people not even being alive to see that that subsidization effect coming to play. So I think even as government tries to look at a future plan and what can be long-term and subsidizing production, I'm aware that the fertilizer has been distributed, though not essentially in all parts of the country, but there has been a step towards that production. But then the issue is, what about today? By the time people harvest, it's about how many months? So what will Kenyans be feeding on between that time and then? So we must be able to also look at it that way. Even if we are looking for the long-term solution, food is an issue that needs both a short-term and a long-term solution. We cannot only emphasize the long-term solution, because some Kenyans will actually not be alive to see you implement that long-term solution. And remember, the life of one citizen is just as important.
Okay.
Yeah, so the president should be able to really have a way in which there can be both short-term and long-term. Yes, there is the talk of the price has come down, but it's now 157, 160. We are not even sure which one is the correct price. But the first thing we should do is that both of us on the political side, we must stop politicizing food issues, stop politicizing unga issues, stop being happy when food prices go up. There is nothing that that benefits us, even in Azimio, when the food prices are high, because when we lose Kenyans, we also lose those ones in Azimio. We don't lose only those ones in Kenya Kwanza. So it should not be a highly political issue. It should be an issue of reason.
Yeah. All right, Wanja, if I may, we were told by Solomon here, if you can't drive, fly. And we've been told by advice that we should stop demonizing the rich. Yes. But in this financial plan, it's the same financial financial bill. It's the same one where we are being told we will now pay 16% on petroleum products.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same one where we have been told we have to sacrifice our paychecks. 3%, but somehow, and maybe you can tell me maybe whether this makes sense. 16. What is this? Aircraft, especially choppers, will be exempt from paying the 16% value added tax, while scrapping the 3.5% import declaration fee and the 2% railway development levy.
As you rightly put it, Olive, you just said it's an issue of compare and contrast. I'll just start with that headline ya ugali wazidi kuwa gali. A very nice use of a very good play of words. And I just want to tie it to the current politics in the country. Yesterday, there was a bit of positive progress in the bipartisan talks. In our side, that is the Azimio side, we presented a list of issues. Do you know what was number one in the list of issues that we want to discuss? Cost of living. For us, it comes first. And why does it come first? Because this administration has all the Kenyans are identifying with our sides and when we speak to the people are saying that it's very expensive to live in Kenya. So we cannot divorce issues that are we cannot divorce issues of food. And you know, when we use ugali in Kenya, I think the people who like to oppose us sometimes when we carry sufurias, they are simplistic by saying that we are just doing it for the fun of it. But cost of living in ugali is symbolic of the rising cost of living and other foods as well. Muchele is expensive, peanut butter, peanuts, rice, what have you. So ugali does not necessarily mean maize flour, but generally the increase in cost of basic commodities. So when it comes to the issues of people who are buying aeroplanes and what have you, fair enough if there is a tax, something for them. But for me, I'm looking at issues that are silent to the majority of Kenyans. And remember, the reason why we keep talking about this issue is because the organizing principle in the 2022 election by the Kenya Kwanza side was just creating the sharp contrast between the people who have money and the people without. The watu wa chini versus watu wa juu, bottom up. So the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid had really been convinced that once tumeingia kwa power, tukiweka Biblia chini, the food will go down. Now, Olive, we've talked about the issue of fuel. So when the cost of fuel imeenda juu, many things hapo zinamaanisha zitakuwa expensive. But also remember that we've also seen a lot of antagonizing statements from the Kenya Kwanza side. For example, Cherargei, one of the senators, he said, this finance bill, we shall not change even a comma. So what are you saying? You are saying that even as we complain, and I was wondering, why should I give my views to the finance, why should I publicly participate if some of the insiders and allies of the president are saying that we shall not change even a comma? And as a young person, as a youth, allow me to also say that something else that is really affecting young people in this finance bill is actually the issue of taxing the digital and the creative economy. Young people, most of them, for example, makeup artists, YouTubers, those who make podcasts and what have you, they were not paying any money because they have seen a source of income that is outside of the traditionally formal employment. Now they are told, for every 100 shilling you make, you have to give us 15 shillings. Because they are saying we shall tax you at 15%. So I'm seeing young people in Kenya who are generally disenfranchised in many ways, also now they are coming for them on all sides, including from the side of the internet. So the long and the short of it is that this issue of cost of living is an issue that, you know, when we were doing this Maandamano town hall meetings, basically it was public participation and speaking to the people to ask them what are the issues. If all Kenyans are saying that the issue of cost of living is top in the list, you can't tell them that they don't know what they are talking about. And lastly, Olive, I think political goodwill is very important. In a country where people are complaining, even people who are even salaried are complaining about the cost of living, the moment it looks like there is no room for dialogue or negotiation and there is no political goodwill for you to identify with the issue of these people, the example that comes to my mind is the story of the Queen somewhere in Europe, who the people told that we are very unhappy, we can't afford bread is so expensive, it must be in France. And that Queen said that, oh, sorry, now you have to eat cupcakes and donuts and Black Forest cake. Eat cake. So it seems like now you are saying if you can't use a matatu, fly. But how many even Kenyans are able to afford?
he said it in jest. Yeah. Okay, Wanja, I want to move us along because
I've not talked about
Oh, you haven't weighed in on this one?
Yeah, of course.
All right, give me 1 quick second. No, I move us along pia kwa the Star. I just want some good vibes and inshallah.
Sure.
Unajua leo ni Friday.
Yeah. Actually.
I really, this picture, I find it very interesting to me. This is the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. It's on the front page of Taifa Leo and Jane Marriott, the exiting United Kingdom High Commissioner to Kenya. Is it not giving you guys some good vibes? Good vibes. Taifa Leo.
Oh, no.
No, you don't have the hard copy. There it is on the screen. Yes. All right. Speaking of good vibes and inshallah, image on the front page of the Star is this one. Sauti Soul, sign up, prepare for big night with Boys to Men. There, Somoina, my former boss at Capital FM, Patrick Kwako, and the members of Sauti Soul. There, I don't know which ones of, whether you guys, your generation even knows who Boys to Men are.
We know.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
May I introduce you to Boys to Men?
Yeah.
This is them. I'm not trying to sell tickets, but I just, sometimes the stories are so serious that we need to lighten the mood a little bit. Now, back to serious matters. What the Star, and the Star has several good stories this morning. This is their headline: major split in Ruto-Raila talks agenda. And if I scroll up, I also see at the bottom here why Uhuru's fate as Jubilee boss now lies with Registrar Joey. How I accidentally shot myself over text message, and Mackenzie police want to starve me to death. I see the political pullout is about why Jubilee power struggles may leave Mount Kenya exposed. Can we pick it up from there?
Yes.
All right. Omulo, you please weigh in on the helicopter business and price of unga.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's only fair to say that all these plans, economic plans that you see, they are well calculated and tactfully, planned. If you see the issue of tax, cuts in the helicopter, helicopter is a luxury, at the same time is a business, which Kenyans need to also venture in. So it is just giving other Kenyans, even the middle class, to also own choppers. And I'm looking forward to, in the near future, to buy. The moment you reduce the levies or taxes on helicopter, you will reduce the pricing of buying helicopter. So it also allows other Kenyans to own choppers. So we are looking forward, and I'm advising Mudalo also to look at this keenly. Also one day to own a chopper.
I suspect Mudalo is importing a chopper. The way he answered that question. Anyway,
secondly, you look at all these taxes, what Wajai is saying.
He owns a hybrid bicycle.
Initially, what Ruto is doing is just cleansing the economic sins meted on Kenyans by the former regime. Initially, we are taxing business people, the lower class at the pyramid, forgetting about the wealthy. You look at the taxes, they are done in a way that they are taxing the wealthy tactfully, but also protecting the poor, those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, from shouldering the baggage of paying a lot of taxes. And that's why you see common people are not complaining, and they are paying taxes through VAT and other forms of paying taxes. So I think it's only prudent to say that we support the initiative done by the government, because Ruto has come out clearly, because it was voted by the hustlers, and it is a responsibility to protect the hustlers. And that's why you can see the indication of coming up with initiatives that are meant to lower the cost of living. It is evident, and you can see importation of about 40 tons of maize, which are supposed to arrest or address the issue of food deficit in this country. So it's only important that we support the government, because at least the food pricing, the unga pricing is coming down progressively. It depends on where you buy it. And I think Wanja should now buy unga in the lower side of Nairobi. It should come out from Lavington and Kileleso side. So, it depends on what type of unga you're buying. Some people buy it at 260, 300. I think Mudalo knows the type of unga that you can buy at 300 shillings. But there's also unga that you can buy at 170, 150, depending on where you buy it and what quality or type of unga that you are buying.
They're not short of sufuria.
I don't want to mention. So it's only important that I'm looking forward to a country where the opposition and the government can sit on a table. They talk, they discuss, bring up their ideas, because they are alternative government.
You have cued me brilliantly. Omulo, you have cued me brilliantly. Because you said you're looking forward to the day where they will sit at a table.
Yes.
discuss issues, solutions.
Yeah.
So issues for discussions at the bipartisan talks.
Yes.
The Kenya Kwanza Coalition talks about reconstitution of IEBC, Commissioners Selection Panel, the 2/3 gender rule, the entrenchment of NG-CDF, GAF, and Senate oversight funds in the Constitution. As I said yesterday on Front and Center, you can find the show on NTV Kenya's YouTube channel. MCA said they also want the War Development Fund in this. Creation of Office of Leader of the Official Opposition, resolving insecurity problems, including banditry and urban gangs, and proposing measures to deal with impunity on the part of those who should bear responsibility. Okay. And legal framework to give effect to Article 37 of the Constitution, regulate, conduct, and assign responsibilities to different parties, including organizers of demonstrations, electoral reforms to ensure closure of electoral outcomes for post-election peace, and national stability. Let me read that again. Electoral reforms to ensure closure of electoral outcomes for post-election peace and national stability. Azimio la Umoja, cost of living, audit of the 2022 presidential election results, a restructuring and reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, measures to prevent interference with political parties, outstanding constitutional matters, governance issues, effective checks and balances, boundaries delimitations. So this was illustrated, or is illustrated, in the Star. I know, Wanja, you wanted to comment on this. I really need to move us on to Mount Kenya. So if you could, in as short a time as possible.
In as short as possible, certainly, there has been inroads in the bipartisan discussion. One of the issues that stood out for me was just the issue of entrenchment of some of these funds in the Constitution. And for us as a Jubilee Party, and for us as Azimio, one of the things that we are keen on now when we talk about NGAF, CDF, what have you, is that they are talking about one man, and you've also noticed that electoral reforms are a recurrent theme on both sides. So they're talking about one man, one vote. But for us, we are also adding and talking about 1 shilling. Because even as we talk about entrenchment of a fund like CDF in the Constitution, fair enough, we are also having very giant issues, and we are taking a lot of concerns in the issue of CDF, for example. Take a child, for example, in Roiro constituency, who receives a bursary from the CDF of around 1,500 shillings or 2,500, while there is a child in another constituency, for example, who receives a bursary of 40,000 shillings. So one of the issues that, as we talk about CDF and some of these funds being in the Constitution, we are also raising issues around equity and equality, why some people contribute much to the national kitty, but when it comes to the welfare of their children, actually, in short, some of these funds are actually discriminatory in nature, because you cannot talk about people who are like 30,000 in a constituency given the same amount as people who are like 200 or 300,000. Lastly, there are some outstanding issues. You know that we took a lot of issue with the elections, and so audit of results will be a very good place to start so that we are all satisfied. Open the server, open the place that is called the server so that we can see what is in there. But most importantly, just to urge the Kenya Kwanza side that has constantly showed ill will. For example, they have sponsored wrangles in Jubilee Party to derail the process. You notice that the Kanini Kega faction, for example, had purported to go to court.
Are you moving along to Mount Kenya?
No,
yes,
Oliver wanted to interject.
No, wait,
because
let Solomon respond to these issues.
There are misrepresentation of facts, and that's why I wanted to interject before actually you went to the Star. Now, before we even comment on the bipartisan talks, we in Jubilee Party have already complained, and we have written to the...
you have moved ahead of me in this conversation.
Because the issue...
Let us move on to Mount Kenya. Are you comfortable with that advice? Or did you want to comment on something on bipartisan?
It's not about Mount Kenya, it's about the bipartisan.
One quick question. Yes?
Yes, I think we'll finish the comment on the bipartisan before we move to...
Then I'll come to you, Solomon. So that you can combine the two issues.
Actually, I'm talking about bipartisan, not Mount Kenya.
Finish your thought.
I'm talking about the constitution of the team. The 7 members from Azimio and the 7 members from Kenya Kwanza. And the Secretary General of Jubilee Party has written to the chairperson of the Joint Committee and copied the Speaker of the National Assembly and Senate and told them, as currently constituted, the bipartisan committee has no representation of Jubilee Party. And he has stated categorically that there is no Jubilee representation, then no bipartisan talks. And I can see on page 6 of the Nation, Raila is threatening to go again to the streets just because we are seeking to be represented in the talks. And that's something that they should accommodate.
But
a political party with 33 elected leaders cannot fail to be represented in such talks. And I want to congratulate our Secretary General Kanini Kega for doing that. If we are not represented in the talks, then there will be no talks.
But Olive, I might just
that's
add
what we are saying.
that letter was dismissed yesterday in the bipartisan
No,
talk.
no,
I'm just talking about facts. Yesterday, and it's actually on mainstream media, they settled on the framework of agreement, the list of issues to be tabled, and the complaint by Kanini Kega was dismissed. That is in the mainstream media.
They have no right to do that. They have no powers.
Also add that Jubilee does not have a position of acting Secretary General, as Solomon is telling us. And we also know who is the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. So let us stop misleading Kenyans, and let us also talk. It's also good to move with the
There
times.
will be no talks without a representative.
Well, the issue was dismissed. The issue was dismissed by the two bipartisan teams. So we can as well move on.
The only challenge we have when we come up with the issue of Jubilee debate is that, you know, we have Jubilee Asili and Jubilee Original. I don't know.
No, Jubilee Asili is the original. And then there's Jubilee Kenya.
There's Jubilee Kenya.
No, which one is that?
So we don't know. We don't know who is saying the truth and who is not saying the truth. I think maybe advice will give maybe an account of the truth or what. But what I wanted to say is that I think it is only important that Wanja has picked a very, very important aspect of the issues we raised as Kenya Kwanza. Look at all the issues that we table. The issues raised by Kenya Kwanza, they are very important issues.
Yes, very.
That are focusing on Kenyans. The issue of NGDF, the issue of two-thirds gender, the issue of GAF, and even ward funds. The issue of creating the office of the opposition leader. But on the other side, our brothers are not genuine, because the cost of living is just put there as cosmetic, because, you know, there's no any other alternative idea that they are bringing on board. The issue of servers, we have said,
it's too soon to be talking about
the issue of the issue of servers. The issue of servers, we have said, and even a common man can understand. You know, sometimes it is very difficult to even explain to Kenyans, because they need to understand what is a server. A server is just an ICT infrastructure which, you know, is giving transferring information to the main big computer. It is a pathway that is either premised at IBC or put under iCloud. And I've told my brothers from the other side, we don't know whether that server is in Kenya or Venezuela or South Africa. And it is not a big issue to us. It's not a priority to Kenyans. So look at this issue. They should think about what they want to discuss. Let us come to this table honestly and in good faith, so that we understand each other, but focus on issues that are meant to help Kenyans. But lastly, before I leave, you know, what I'm seeing, look at the proposal.
Might be his last opportunity to speak.
You know what I've seen in these talks. You see the proposal of eliminating presidential executive order and coming up with the People Initiative through under Article 255 to 257. It only means that in the near future, after 1 month of negotiation, they might come up with a proposal to have a referendum, and that will be costly. And I think they should advise their leaders to abandon that.
But should we not take some of these issues to referendum? Now, if I can I bring advice in at this point? Advice, everybody has come with their agenda. Isn't that risky then? Because what about the rest of the people who do not fall between these two? Should these talks, and as Mio has consistently said, let's have a parallel process, but should we just open up the process? Kenya Kwanza are the ones who have really been trying to limit the scope, but are these issues, are these conversations that should be taking place on a bigger stage, in your view?
First of all, Olive, we are not supposed to move towards a direction where we are more inclusive and less progressive, because we cannot want everybody to take part in a conversation. At the end of the day, the conversation is not even happening, but we are happy that we are taking part in the conversation, because at the end of the day, we must have some people to lead the process. So the issue of who is part of it and whatsoever, for me, is not as large a matter as what is the content of the conversation. And that is where our focus should be. And when I look at the issues from both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, anyone looking at those issues will be able to see that one part of this divide is specific with their issues. Another side is a bit ambiguous with their issues.
So,
and there is let me just finish that thought process, because we must actually, you know, there's one of the biggest problems with the political issues in Kenya is that we think that when you're a young person in politics, when you're silent about the reality, then it makes you a loyal person. I think that is not the truth. We should be able to come up and say the truth. The bipartisan talks, the exclusion, I sit on the neck of the Jubilee Party. I cannot sit on this panel and promote exclusion of Jubilee Party in such a fundamental process.
Exactly.
Because in such a process, when you're not on the table, then you are on the menu.
Yeah.
Jubilee Party is the third largest party in the Republic of Kenya today. And not just that, we actually qualify to be a parliamentary party, and that is something that should be actually be processed. And not just Jubilee, let me talk as Azimio as well. Apart from Jubilee, DAP Kenya, NAC, and all the other parties, they do not have representation in these bipartisan talks. But when we say that, we are the first point of say is that you have been bought by Kenya Kwanza. It is wrong for Azimio to make it look like every time somebody disagrees with the processing of things, instead of looking deep into the issue, we look at how can we be able to frame them so that they look like they are on the other side, then we avoid the main issue. A committee of 7 people, Olive, 5 out of 7 are ODM. Azimio has how many parties? You have excluded Jubilee. Jubilee was not included in these bipartisan talks from the beginning. Remember, the first person to name their team was Azimio, and Jubilee was not given a slot. When Kenya Kwanza named their team and included Jubilee, that is the time when Azimio remembered that Jubilee is actually part of Azimio. And then, okay, when now Jubilee accepted to say, okay, fine, Honorable Aden Keynan to come back, step out of the Kenya Kwanza team, there was no inclusion still on the Azimio side. But when we complain about that, the first thing we are told is that you have been bought by Kenya Kwanza. I wanted to be very categorical that issues about coalition decorum and party discipline should be addressed specifically by those organs. And it's not a question of quickly looking for how to fix them and calling the kettle black and giving a dog a bad name just to haunt it. Let us be realistic with the issues. The issue is, number one, Jubilee must be included in these bipartisan talks because Jubilee is the third largest party in the Republic today. Two, the chairman of Azimio, as it stands now, who is supposed to actually transition because of constitutional provisions, is also a Jubilee Party member. So the issue is you cannot exclude Jubilee and quickly hang the party altogether. And two, the issues we are raising here, in my view, we need to canvass them better as Azimio. We need to be more specific with our demands. Because when we say audit of the 2022 presidential elections, what is specific about that? When we say cost of living, what is specific about that? And when I say that, I don't mean that Kenya Kwanza has bought me, or Molo has not bought me. If anything, he has said, I want to buy a chopper. So we must be able to focus on these issues and address them with the specificity that it deserves. And just to conclude on the matters of Jubilee Party, I wouldn't want matters of Jubilee to spiral out of control. The Internal Dispute Resolution Committee of Jubilee sat last week, and matters of Honorable Jeremiah Kioni and Murathe were canvassed in that, and the three of them actually appeared to that committee. So let us leave the internal mechanisms of Jubilee to make decisions for Jubilee Party, and not necessarily spiral them in the media and cause allegations and make it look like the issues in Jubilee are a Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio issue. The issues in Jubilee are specifically Jubilee issues, and Jubilee Party will settle all its issues. I don't know whether now you will allow me, Olive, to comment on...
No, I cannot.
On the finance bill.
I know we are out of time.
Yeah. Okay.
But I allowed you to kufungua roho.
Yes.
Kufungua roho hiyo mambo ya Jubilee. I hope you feel lighter.
But I've not.
Wanja, I'm sorry. This is
much.
beyond me. I can't stop time. I can't stop time. I'm really
but it's
sorry.
good. It's good advice. Is honest today. Yeah. And
so Wanja, I will create another forum. We will discuss what siasa.
Alafu that
the
photo.
siasa
That is the
pull-out.
best photo ungepata ya all party leaders.
Kioni na UK.
Yani hiyo picha tu vile iko. By the way, tuko live.
Tuko live. So we'll get into this another day. Why Jubilee power struggles may leave Mount Kenya exposed. Ongoing wrangles viewed as fueled by someone's desire to end Uhuru's influence. Who is the real Mama?
I
the
just
question we asked
the
last
I was
time.
to come in on the issue of the
Wanja,
who is
hakuna
the
time, hakuna time.
Okay.
Tutanyolewa, kuna siku
We are
tutanyolewa.
done.
So I want to thank my
We are
panelists this morning. We've had in studio advice. Mundalo, thank you for sharing the poster, by the way.
Thank you.
On your Twitter. He's the National Youth Chair, Jubilee. You had him say himself that he sits on the neck. Another person who sits on the neck is Wanja Maina, neck member at Jubilee Party. Solomon Kuria, political analyst. Omulo Junior, director, political affairs, ANC. My name is Olive Burrows. Coming up is where radio meets television. The Morning Fix. Wanasimanga, sherehe, sheria. Have a good weekend.